What's up, eco nerdlings? In this podcast, we're going to be talking about soil horizons. So what just is a horizon? Well, a soil horizon is basically like saying a different type or a layer of soil. So soil is composed of many different layers, the first of which we call the O horizon. O stands for the organic layer or the organic horizon. So O is for organic. So the organic horizon contains a lot of plant litter that accumulates and it gradually decays through the process of decomposition. So we have bacteria as well as different types of organisms like worms that help to break down that decaying matter, and it makes it into this really, really rich, nutrient-dense topsoil layer called the organic layer or the O horizon. However, in some instances, there is no O horizon. For example, in deserts. Deserts are extremely dry. They don't have a lot of biodiversity. They don't have a lot of plants or animals. So they lack that O horizon. In other areas, we have an extremely large amount of O horizon. It can actually be the dominant layer. So the next layer or horizon is called the A horizon, and that's our topsoil. It's very dark and it's rich in accumulated organic matter as well as humus, which is an accumulation of clay and sand as well as some organic matter. It has a granular texture, so it's kind of grainy, and it's also somewhat nutrient poor due to the fact that much of the nutrients are lost and the minerals to deeper layers by the process of leaching. So basically those minerals are leaching out of that area into the layer that's beneath it, which is called the B horizon, also the subsoil. So this is light colored subsoil and it's beneath the A horizon. It's often a zone of alluviation where the nutrient minerals have leached out of the topsoil and accumulate. So if you're wondering what the heck this word means, alluviation, it's basically talking about minerals or nutrients that use, or that don't use, minerals or nutrients where water has carried them from a top portion of the soil to a bottom portion of the soil. And it's a vertical transport of those nutrients, and we call that alluviation. So water is helping to move nutrients from the top portion to the bottom portion. And it's typically rich in iron as well as aluminum and clay. Our next different horizon is called the parent material or the C horizon. And it contains pieces of weathered rock and it borders the unweathered solid parent material. Most roots from plants don't go down this deep, and it's often saturated with groundwater. So right here we have our bedrock, and then we have C right here, and the bedrock is what has been weathered and eroded away to help form the soil to begin with. So right here, this is an example of all of our different soil horizons. So up here we have our O horizon, which contains all of the organic matter, meaning things that have been alive, that are now decaying and being broken down through the process of decomposition, and they fertilize and make that soil very, very nutrient dense. Then we have our A horizon, which is the topsoil, the B horizon, and then our C horizon, which borders the parent material. And as you can see here, the root system, like it was stating in the previous slide, it doesn't quite penetrate into that parent material because obviously rocks are very hard to penetrate into. So we have layers of the mature soil. Some of the vocabulary that you need to make sure you're familiar with are the word infiltration. This is the downward movement of water through soil. So it infiltrates that soil. And then the word leaching. This is the dissolving of minerals and organic matter in the upper layers, carrying them to the layers that are below. And then the type of soil determines the degree of infiltration or leaching. So if you remember from the previous lecture, sand is going to be very easy to infiltrate. There's going to be a lot of leaching that occurs in there because it's extremely porous and extremely permeable. Whereas if we have a clay layer, that's going to be a lot more dense. The particles are going to be a lot smaller. So different types of minerals as well as water aren't going to be able to pass through it as quickly as they would with sand. So some of the different environments we have where you see different amounts of leaching as well as different layers are going to be our biomes. So we have our desert soil. Obviously the desert is characterized by a very hot, dry climate. So we have a mosaic of very closely packed pebbles and boulders. And remember, we don't really have much of an O layer if we have one at all. We have a very weak humus mineral mixture. And then we have our dark, dry brown to reddish brown with variable accumulations of clay, calcium carbonate, as well as soluble salts. We have our grassland soil, which is a semi-arid climate. This can be very alkaline, meaning very basic. So it's dark and it's very rich in the humus, and it's composed of clay and calcium compounds. Our tropical rainforest is characterized by very humid, lots of moisture, lots of biodiversity, and it tends to have a much more acidic soil. It's very light colored humus, and then the next layer has a lot of iron, aluminum compounds mixed with the clay. We have our deciduous forest soil, and that biome is characterized by kind of a humid climate. It's also very mild. You see all of the different types of deciduous trees that shed their leaves in the winters. The forest is littered by a lot of leaves, molds. We have a very large organic layer. We have a very mineral dense humus layer. It's the next layer is going to be light, kind of grayish brown, a lot of silt and loam. And then we have our dark brown firm clay layer. Our coniferous forest, which is going to be our evergreen forest where the leaves do not fall off. We have the pine needles. It's characterized in the soil by humid. It's a cold climate. It's kind of acidic, so acidic litter and the humus layer. We have light colored, which is also acidic. And then we have humus and iron as well as aluminum compounds. So as with most lectures, we have a case study that goes with this. So one of the things that we're looking at now is how the industrialized food production in the United States affects our soil. So a lot of energy is expended on food production. So looking at this right here, we have industrialized agriculture that uses about 17% of all commercial energy in the United States, and food travels around 2,400 kilometers from farm to plate. So about 4% are actually spent on the crops as well as the livestock or the food production. 6% of that energy is spent food processing it, canning it, bottling it, slaughtering the animals, packaging the meat, getting the milk, packaging the milk, shipping it out. And then we have our food distribution as well as preparation, which accounts for 5% of that energy. So in traditional agriculture, we had a very low input polyculture. So many farmers in developing countries still use low input agriculture to grow a variety of crops on each plot of land, which we call interplanting, through polyvarietal cultivation, and that means that they plant several genetic varieties. They have intercropping, which means they plant 2 or more different crops and they grow them at the same time in that same plot. We have agroforestry, meaning that crops and trees are actually grown together. And then we have polyculture, which is where different plants are planted together. Well, I hope that was helpful. This is the Queen Nerdling signing off. Stay nerdy till next time.